just because you say off record doesn't mean that that's super offensive. Right. And like, you could probably get sued for this. Interview in person. I mostly don't always get the job because really? I told the guy, I was like, will you please go get the manager? He knows who I am. Mm-hmm. Like, he told me like we would have a meeting. Mm-hmm. So like going
went in there with.
Oh yeah. I told my dad to stay in the car too. And I was like, I got this, you know? And so my first ever big mural that I ever did in Kansas City in a restaurant was 8, but now I have the verbiage for it. So it's been a process of like making sure that that doesn't ever happen to me again.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to your favorite podcast. My name is Vania Chavez, your host, and it's with great pleasure that today I introduce you to one of my favorite people here in Kansas City. She is a very well-known artist. I've been following her for many years. I've been able to collaborate with her in the past with an artist convention that was hosted by the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And so today I am super proud to introduce you to my friend Vania Soto. Welcome, bienvenida.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Vania, I wanted to have you be a guest on my podcast because I know you've worked very hard throughout the years. You started out very young as an artist, and you've been very persistent. You've been doing it for many years now. You're still young, but I know you've been pretty consistent, and you've been able to convert it into your professional career. This is what you do for a living. It's not just a hobby.
Yes.
And not everybody can accomplish this. Yeah. So I'm curious to learn and share your story with my viewers, our viewers, so that they can get to know who is Vania and how were you able to manage such great success as an artist? Because historically, they always say as an artist, you don't make money until you're part of history.
Yeah.
But you're living history and you're doing so many great things. And so I'm so excited to share your story. So tell us a little bit about who is Vania and how you became an artist.
Oh my gosh. So I guess I've just always been an entrepreneur at heart. I think being an artist, it goes along hand in hand with being an entrepreneur. And I've known since I was very, very little that I wanted to do art. But I would also like tell people that, and the feedback would be like, well, that's not really a career. That's not really like, that's what you do on your spare time. That's not like really what people say they want to be when they grow up. Like, what about it do you want to do? Mm-hmm. And I wasn't too sure on my plan. I just knew that I was going to always do it. Mm-hmm. And so I grew up in East Tennessee. And we were the only Hispanic family in Kingsport, Tennessee. Very, very, very small town. And we moved there because my dad worked there. Mm-hmm. And so, but there was one Mexican restaurant there in town, and we would go every Sunday to have menudo. This guy was Mexican-American, and it was just cool to know somebody else in the town at the time, because over time there more Hispanic people came, or Latinos came over. And so we would always go to this Mexican restaurant, and he would have paintings on his wall. Mm-hmm. He would have paintings on his wall, but like the typical Mexicans with the big sombrero and the cactus laying out, and like with the bottles that said XX, that kind of thing. And that always bothered me. Every time I would go, we would sit in the same booth, and that would always bother me. I'd always have like a front view of one of the paintings in particular. And I just always remember looking at it like, man, we're the only Hispanic people in the city, like where we're from. It's not a city at all. It's just a town. It's a town. We have one like post office. So that's how small it was. And so I was thinking like, man, so my friends are going to think like that's how my dad is, like the guy in the picture. Right. And that like impacted me a lot. And, I thought it over before Sunday came along again. And I told my mom, hey, I want to say something about how I feel. And she would always say, you know what, always speak your mind, just be respectful. Mm-hmm. There's a reason for everything, but your voice is valid. whatever
Right.
you want to say. If it makes you feel better by saying it, doesn't mean you'll fix the problem, but at least you'll honor your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mom is very outspoken and very like just like very superwoman
Mm-hmm.
energy. Like she's amazing. And so she's always taught me that. And my dad was very, very supportive too.
Mm-hmm.
And so one day I just told the guy, I was like, hey, I don't really like your paintings, your pictures you have in the restaurant. And he would laugh and he would be like, well, why? I'm like, I just think that they're a little offensive,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, we're the only Latinos here, and it's just not a very good representation. My dad's not like that. You're not like that. Like, why have that representation? You know what his answer was? He was
Mm-hmm.
like, listen, I get all my stuff from Restaurant Depot. If you
Mm-hmm.
have a Mexican restaurant, these are the options. And
Mm-hmm.
so to let people know that this is a Mexican restaurant, you buy the things, the image to make it like a Mexican restaurant.
Right.
He's like, I didn't think about it. Like, it's just like came all together and I just
Mm-hmm.
put them out. And so, and he's like, I mean, why? What are you thinking? What do you
Mm-hmm.
have in mind? And I was like, well, it just so happens that I'm an artist and I could probably come up with something different. I was 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
So this
I
is
should have led
happening
with
when you were
that.
12.
Yeah.
Wow.
I should have led with that. This is a story that I tell people when I go to career days
Mm-hmm.
for schools and, middle schools, high schools, and stuff. And so it's my story of entrepreneurship and how I how I started. And he gave me an opportunity. He's like, why don't you paint something for me whenever you guys come back to eat? Bring it and I'll take a look at it and like we could see. He took me serious. He was laughing like most of the time, but
Mm-hmm.
he saw that I wasn't backing down. So he gave me the time of day to like at least give me an answer.
Right.
And I was like, okay, no problem. So I told my dad, I have no materials. I have research to do. I need a library card because that's how old I am. And I need to like do my research for what I want to do. I need a loan. I asked him for a loan. Necesito que me prestes dinero. And that was very serious. That was the first time I ever asked for money from my dad.
Wow.
And so, because I mean, I knew better. Like the answer was probably going to be no, And so we didn't like have chores that we got paid for or anything like that. So this was a serious business transaction, my first business transaction. And so he said, okay, fine. I'll give you whatever it is that you need, but you have to pay me back. So if you don't sell those paintings, I don't know what you're going to do. You're going to have to get a job and you're going to have to pay me back. And I was so serious about it. I was like, no, I got this. I got this, And so I went to my library, and that's when I discovered Frida Kahlo. That's where I discovered Diego Rivera. I discovered so many other like Mexican artists that weren't just like artists that painted, but artists that made movements to make Mexico what we are as a culture.
Mm-hmm.
Even indigenous people. I just discovered all of Mexico at that time for that project. I wasn't even too sure about the map of Mexico. Like, my parents brought me to the US when I was 8 years old. And so I didn't go to school, like high school, and like learn geography and all of that. Like, I literally in this moment realized how I wanted to be represented at that age, at that time, and like what I could research and find. And so I did 6 paintings out of all of my research. I did replicas of Diego Rivera, and I did like collage styles paintings of different themes in Mexico and stuff like that. And so I was done one day and I told my dad, hey, it's not Sunday. Can you give me a ride to the restaurant? I have to meet with the manager. And so I came in from the back of the restaurant where the dishwashers were, and I told everybody to get out of my way so I could put my paintings up. and I told the guy, I was like, will you please go get the manager? He knows who I am. Mm-hmm. Like, he told me like we would have a meeting. Mm-hmm. So like going
went in there with.
Oh yeah. I told my dad to stay in the car too. And I was like, I got this. And so this guy was like laughing. He's like, "Hey, there's some little girl back here saying she's got a meeting with you. Like, tiene junta contigo. I don't know. She looks pretty serious. Like, we literally can't work because she has all her paintings." And he's like, "Oh my god, she did it. She actually did it."
Uh-huh.
And so he came by and he's like, "Oh, thank you for taking this project serious." Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Oh, you have no idea with your journey." Like, I was like,
"You're like, yeah, but yeah,
like,
serious.
Let me tell you, like." And so he looked at all the paintings and I was explaining every single painting to him and why it would be a better replacement to his walls. And I was like, "Listen, this is a perfect size to replace that one." And da 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 da. Like, I had a plan. I came in with a plan. I envisioned it. I felt good about it. And he was poker faced after a while and wasn't like responding. And I'm like, "What's going on?" And he was like, "This is the reason literally why I wanted to have a Mexican restaurant like in East Tennessee where there are no other Hispanics, because we have to share our culture. Like, we have to." The guy was like Mexican American and was like, had been in the U.S. for years and years, kind of like jaded about it. But he realized that, or he remembered more why he started a Mexican restaurant there. And I'm like, "Oh, a lot of my recipes are like from my family's recipes, and I'm really famous for it, but nobody knows that." Mm-hmm. And so having something so special that tells stories about Mexico, like, that'll make me realize why I do it every single day. Mm-hmm. And so that day he bought all 6 paintings.
Oh, wow.
And awesome. That was my first like artist transaction. Business endure. But I learned a lot about my culture. I stood up for something that I thought was important to me and my family and my community. And I spoke up, and somebody listened to me and gave me that opportunity. After that, I was like, this is what I want to do.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah. You definitely showed right there that you were committed or passionate about representing our culture in the proper light. Because like you said, a lot of times you do go to restaurants and you see a lot of stereotypical artifacts that really are not a current representation of our culture, because it's evolved a lot, And it brought me back a reminder of a story when my family had a restaurant and we tried to kind of do something a little bit different, and we didn't have the typical Mexican decor. And I remember one of the clients came in, one of the ladies was like, "Hey, why don't you guys decorate this like a real Mexican restaurant?" And I looked at her like, "Well, what do you mean?" She goes, "Yeah, why don't you decorate it like you would decorate your house?" And I was like, "Oh, what do you mean how I would decorate my house?" She goes, "With sombreros and maracas." And I was like, this lady really thinks I have sombreros and maracas in my house. And it's kind of like, wow, it's unfortunate, but at the same time, that's why we have to speak up and represent our culture and our people the way they are. Just one of the reasons why I created this podcast, because I want to show the world that here in the U.S., Latinos are doing great things just like you are. And so I'm happy to hear your story. That's kind of where it all stemmed from.
Yeah. And when I started doing paintings, it started with Mexican restaurants. It started with working with other entrepreneurs and kind of like cross-promoting each other. And so I'm so happy to say now that I moved to Kansas City, there's so many Mexican restaurants that have my artwork on the wall. That's really exciting for me, but not just Mexican restaurants, Latino restaurants. Mm-hmm. My first ever big mural that I ever did in Kansas City in a restaurant was Empanada Madness. Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Yes. Awesome. Not the one that was on Southwest Boulevard, but the newer one.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I did a collage style of the most important places in Venezuela. And so I learned a lot there too. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But I was proud because I was taken back to that moment that this is their best representation. And so to be honored to have the opportunity to put that together for them. Because now any person from Venezuela is going to come in like, I remember that bridge. I know where that mountain is. I know where that river is. That's our national bird. And Yeah. So.
And did you just recently do another Central American restaurant, Latin American restaurant?
Central American? Yes, I did. Okay. Sorry, they all kind of blended together after a time. But it's called Café Tikal.
Okay.
And yes, I did a bunch with my friend
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Vasquez. He's a great artist too, he's my best friend. And we kind of collaborated on some murals together all over the restaurant. And I still
Mm-hmm.
have one more to do on the outside. We were just waiting for better weather.
Okay.
So, yes.
And I mentioned that because as you were talking about the mural you did in Venezuela, how people can recognize specific um, monuments or,
Yeah.
commonly known places in their country. The girls that I was talking to earlier were talking about, oh yeah, you're gonna interview Vania. I know she was involved with that restaurant, and they were referencing some of the bridges and some of the locations, the arches and things like that. So it's true, people can connect and maybe kind of show, because people always bundle Central America and
I
Mexico, and
know. I
they're
know.
just part of Mexico. So that way we can start showing how
Mm-hmm.
different our countries are. That we
Yeah.
have a little bit of everything. That everybody wears sombreros
I know.
and maracas.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So tell me, when did you know you were going to do this as your full time career? When did you know?
So, my first job in Kansas City, I got hired by Reyes Media. I worked
Mm-hmm.
for Dos Mundos newspaper
I
for
remember.
years, all of my youth,
Uh-huh.
basically, and into my 20s. Yeah, into my 20s, almost to my 30s. And so, yeah, I started picking up commission work when I worked there.
Mm-hmm.
And so after a lot of us got laid off, I think the newspaper was converting into online
Mm-hmm.
presence. So we didn't know what that would kind of look like until like it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing now. I know they're still doing amazing. And so I was looking for jobs because I knew I wanted to stay in the media and like getting to know people and like having using all the connections that I had built up.
Mm-hmm.
And so just by working for media. And so I was like searching for jobs, but I was also like fulfilling commission paintings at the same time. And so they kind of kept coming a little. I would be done with one and I'd have another project. And I did that for a while I was like looking for what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And until I just kind of stopped noticing that, or no, started noticing that I had a bunch of jobs that I could do. And I was like, oh my God, I think this is working. Like, I think it's just like, I could do this. By then, like, social media was huge, but it becoming bigger at the same time. So I would post every single job that I would get. Facebook was like coming up and railing up, and I had all of those followers from working for the media, which I'm so grateful for, because I would post every job that I would finish. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of got word of mouth, more projects and different things like that until I was just kind of naturally doing that full time. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh, I got to find a space of like where I could do all of my paintings and different things like that. And I don't know how it just like murals came up. I did the one mural at the restaurant. I posted that, and that kind of trickled down to bigger projects. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And it's interesting how you mentioned that you had all these projects, but a lot of times we get comfortable with that steady paycheck coming in, and we forget and we don't see that there's opportunities that we can survive off of our passions if we are just consistent and stick with it and lose our fear of losing that cushion underneath us.
Yeah. The good thing is that I got really good at pricing before I had to do it full time while I had a full time job. And so I didn't kind of wasn't very aware that I was preparing myself for doing that without on purpose. If it was for me, I would still work for media to the day. If everybody just was like, cool, you're doing a great job, I would just keep going and I would grow and I would have other positions and in media. And so yeah, it just kind of happened naturally, and then I just haven't stopped. And it's awesome. Now I have my own gallery and I have my own space where I share with other artists to do the same thing. Inside the gallery, I have 4 studios for artists that we just finished building like 2 weeks ago.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so brand new. And so we're really excited to start hosting artists there in the gallery. And we also have a boutique inside because not every artist is a painting artist. Some artists might do pottery, might do custom t-shirts, jewelry. There's so many other ways to express yourself. And so now I have the gallery, the boutique. So you can actually create in the studios and go out and actually sell them in the gallery or the boutique, depending on what kind of artist you are.
So can artists rent this space, or how does that
Yes.
work?
Yes. So right now, since we're just finishing up, um, artists can rent the space, but what we're doing is we're actually looking for sponsors to give artists fellowship opportunities so that they can be there for no cost to them, and they can just actually work and create and not have to worry about overhead and actually concentrate on creating a collection that they can actually sell in the same space. So that's our future.
What are some of the biggest challenges artists face?
Um, I guess every artist is different because
Mhm.
not every artist does the same kind of art. So it just depends on who you ask. Some challenges that I've run into is that um, I really took muralism like very serious and wanted to go higher. But I have a lot of male artists that usually get the jobs that I'm applying for. And it's, you could tell, like, if I, especially if I show up to the interview in person, I mostly don't always get the job because I
Really?
just, yeah, it's just, it is very dangerous. You do have to use machinery to get high up there. Or if you're even just in a ladder, it's like, there's always, but I've never been scared of heights. I've always been the crazy person, like up there doing it. I've had so many murals up to 3 floors now. My goal is to get up to 12 floors. And to be able to apply for those jobs, you need like a certificate to know how to drive the, what are they called, the machinery to get you up there. And so but that's so easy. That's, I mean, I can do it. I know that I can do it. So that's my next goal
So
is
they probably
to
look at this little cute little bougie little girl here. She's like,
yeah.
no.
They're like, no, I've actually had a guy, this was years ago, but I've had a guy, it was this construction company that they owned this building, and it was a in-person interview. And this guy was like, just trying to have my back. Was like, hey, off record, like, this is really dangerous. Like, do you have kids? And I was like, no. He's like, well, don't you want some? Like, this is very dangerous. And like, you're putting yourself in a position. And I'm just like, just because you say off record doesn't mean that that's super offensive, and
Right.
like you could probably get sued for this. I did not get the job. My male counterparts, I could always tell which one would probably get it, but I have had a contract where I have said yes, and they've said yes to me. I've designed the contract. I mean, the mural, but it didn't have a contract. And so all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, we love your images, but I think we're going to go with somebody else."
Wow.
Yeah, and then because they provided me with their images for me to like collage and put together for a mural, they used that same collage and gave it to another artist to do. Like, you don't have to design it. This is exactly what we want.
Wow.
And so when I went back to them and said, "Hey, like that was my design," and he's like, "No, that's our material. All of those images, you don't own those images." Yeah. So that taught me lessons. I mean, that taught me lessons. Now I have a design fee and I have a contract saying you can't use it unless you hire me and I do the job. And even after that, you don't have the rights to the mural. Even if they pay me to do that, that mural is still mine, meaning I could use it and put it on t-shirts if I wanted. As long as I don't use their logo, but all those images, I still own all of the rights to anything that I ever create, but now I have the verbiage for it. So it's been a process of like making sure that that doesn't ever happen to me again. But I mean, I'm glad it was that deal instead of like other deals that I've had that have been, bigger. And so, yeah, a lot of trial and error, but it's also educating people like, hey, you know what's really, really helped me is time lapse. Showing people that I actually do the job, like by myself. I had people like, well, do you have a group? Do you have people that help you? Like, who helps you with ladders and stuff? I'm like, what? So offensive. I mean, sure, they are really heavy, and my boyfriend and my brother and my best friend have helped me in jobs that were difficult, but I'm the artist.
Right.
I do the job. Anybody
Right.
could go out and help you, like, hey, I have a project. Can you help me like carry stuff in?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But like who does the job at the end? It's me. It's I'm the artist that makes it happen.
Right.
And so doing time lapse had really helped me. It was like free marketing for me, because it's not just you post a finished project. No, you carry the audience with you, creating that whole thing. So when they see it in person, they're like, "I saw her make that. Like that's really cool." And it's better for hiring out when they feel like they were involved in the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting too because I see a lot of times, like on social media posts, that like people who make cakes, it's an art in itself as well, right?
Yeah.
Cakes or balloon artists, and people say, "Well, it's just a few balloons. How much can it cost? I'll buy them on Amazon. How much will you charge me?" How do you overcome that challenge of like, "Oh, you're just buying a little bit of paint and some paintbrushes.
Yeah.
It shouldn't cost that much."
To be honest, my answer to that kind of feedback is probably they don't really know me and what I've done in the past, and they're not familiar with my work. It's usually you have to educate people, and you can't blame people for thinking that way, especially if it's a project that they have a low budget for or whatever. It's just you have to educate people like this is fine art, or like this I have experience for over 25 years of doing this. um, so now I get to charge this. It's kind of like promoting myself. So these are my rates. So it's either I will always work with people if I know their budget. I will design something within that budget.
Right.
Almost always they don't like it. They're like, that's too simple. And do it for. So I'm like, okay, well, your budget has to expand for my design to expand. So I can always work with people in their budgets, but that doesn't mean it's going to be what you want. So if you started the other way around where you're like, okay, well, don't exceed over 3,000 or something. And then I'm like, perfect. I'll give you 2 to 3 different images of the same like render of how much they are, and then they get to pick. So it's just working with people and just educating people like, well, this is why I do that. But I know so many other artists. I would love the opportunity and be like, that's awesome. I'll work with you. They need those opportunities for their portfolios and different things like that. So if it doesn't work out with me, I almost always will know somebody that will do it for that price or will do an awesome job too. And it's just early in their career and they need the project.
Yeah, and it's always something important to educate on. I think every industry goes through that challenge of, yes, we have something to offer you, but for your budget, this is what you get.
Exactly.
You don't get the $20,000 package if you only have a $5,000 budget.
Yeah.
You know, with the car, if you don't have the right income or the right credit, you cannot walk into Mercedes and say, I want a Mercedes. I want one too, but my budget's only for a Chevy. So
I got you. And yeah, it also telling them like, hey, if you run a business and this is for your business, this is a write-off for you. So even decorating your office, buying a painting would be a write-off for you. Sure, you love it and you can take it home if you want, but if the purpose was for your business, you can write it off. So there's ways that you can go around and working with people, because I want to specialize in working with other businesses because I'm a small business, so we kind of go work really good together. Yeah.
So what's the piece of art that you're most proud of?
Oh my gosh. Well, it has to be the one. I have a painting at the Nelson Atkins right now.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm exhibiting for a year in this group exhibition. That's my latest painting in canvas that I've done. And it's kind of like a family tree style. I've included myself. It's just like my back. And then I painted myself braided. I'll send you a picture so you can post it. I painted myself like braided, and the picture is from the back. And my braid goes into like roots on the ground, and then I have my 5 times grandmothers on the roots. I found their names.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty cool. I can't wait to see it.
It's awesome. So it's and all of them except for my mom were born in Durango in the same exact like 20 minutes from each other.
Oh wow.
5 times grandmothers. So my roots are strong in Durango. Yeah. And so like that was amazing. I didn't know that. And so until I started researching, like, I don't know about you, but like I always like when in prayer, I think about my ancestors that are like looking down on me and stuff, but like I've always wondered who they were.
Mm-hmm.
What were their names? Like, I mean, sure, I probably won't get a picture, but like at least if I knew their names, I can talk to them directly, like I would anyone else. And so that's why I even researched it in the first place. I found them from the Catholic Church because they're not registered; they were indigenous, and that's the only way to be like registered. They're not even registered under Mexico; they're registered under the Catholic religion.
Oh wow!
And that part of Durango is very rural, and so that's kind of how like they started marrying people, or whenever you had a baby, they had to get baptized, or whenever you got married, you have to get married through the church. So there was always a record of people. So I mean, that was unfortunate in that way because they stole a lot of their culture. But I got to know who their names, their husbands' names, their kids' names.
And how, did you go to Durango, or how did you find the information?
Online, Catholic really? Church online. Yeah, but yeah, you can find anything through the Catholic Church. That's if they were Catholic, which I did not know that that's how I was going to find them. I actually went through the Mexican consulate and I asked the consul, like, how can I do that? And she's like, oh girl, if it's Durango, especially in Durango, like you should definitely look into the Catholic Church and the records. And I didn't know how to do that. I just Googled it, and it was kind of seamless on how to find, because I knew their last names and where in Durango they were from and stuff. So that was kind of easy.
That's interesting. My family's from Chihuahua. My father's side, my father specifically, he was born in a small town in Chihuahua, El Tule. So I'm probably gonna do that type of research, see if I can find more information.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting though, how you keep bringing history into your artwork.
Yeah.
Is that something that naturally happens with art? Artists have to be very involved in researching history, or is that kind of like yours unique touch?
I think it's just an immigrant story. Especially when you're not living like where you're from, you're always wondering. I just feel like everybody has to just discover where they come from to know kind of where they're going in life. And that's not to say that any person that's locally born here and all of their parents and their parents' parents were born here, but I think it's just something within that like calls you to look for that or celebrate those things. If you're of any ethnicity, I just feel like that's the thing, is just to celebrate who you are. But it's not just me, it's like the people that came before me to like make me who I am, and then after that I can kind of figure it out.
So what advice do you have for any young aspiring artists that are thinking they want to do this as a career
professionally? Well, I've been a teacher for about, it's going to go on 7 years now. I've taught kids 10 to 16 years old. And I don't just teach the art and drawing, the painting and all of that. I also teach them entrepreneurship. When you learn a skill that you can do with your own two hands, and at the same time simultaneously learning about how I would price that, what the value of your time is, it clicks onto the other side of the brain too. So it's not just the left side of your brain that's creative, but it's also like the math side of your brain that's creative. So anytime that you get to experience that, you can use both sides of the brain, you'll never forget that moment. It's just kind of like, especially for younger kids. So my advice to anybody that would be interested in doing something like this is to sketch every day, draw every day. If it's clay, play with clay every single day. Research other artists. A lot of artists use or are inspired by other artists, and they don't realize maybe what their style is until they see all of the styles ever available. And if you still don't find something that you love, create your own, but then you'll know what to look for. This is nothing like any other artist I've seen, or really like this artist and I can mimic that, but in my own style. So I would research as much as possible, and I would practice every single day to try to get better. Let's say you are only really good at drawing a rose. Draw a rose every single day and get like you can't make a better rose. Get to that moment. And so, but people are going to realize that and invite people, especially in entrepreneurship. Marketing is everything. So share the process. Hey, this is day 1 rose, and this is like month 3 rose. Like, here's my progress. Imagine what I could do. Like, I don't know, market yourself. You're a brand. As an artist, you are your own brand. Your name is the name of your brand. So if you start thinking about that, you can take yourself a little bit more serious on what you want to do, because now that's the name of your brand, right? What do you want your brand to be?
What's your take on new art, like with the technology, artificial intelligence, graphic design? How do you implement any new technologies into your art, or are you just a traditional muralist?
I mean, I am a traditional muralist, but I mock everything digitally
Mhm.
first. So, like, say you want to do a family portrait and you don't have all the people together, I on Photoshop put them together. So, um, I've always used technology to kind of get to where I want to be
Mhm.
and like creatively. There's other ways to do that. It's just easier now. So it's just making things easier. And I know a lot of people said, hey, it's a dying art by like just painting on canvas,
Mhm.
but it's the oldest tradition ever besides like painting on the like rocks. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's self-expression and storytelling, and that's culture. I don't think that's ever going to die. Sure, there's probably going to be new inventions, a way to do that, but um, that's always going to be something that people look for
Mhm.
in history. So I don't think it's going anywhere. Use it to your best ability. For example, I was helping a friend create a logo the other day, and I used AI. I'm like, okay, she wants this. This is the kind of text. This is a name, and like I put it through like a design thing, and it gave me a bunch of renderings that in any other company that would charge you so much money to get
Mhm.
all of those renderings of the same logo.
Right.
And so creatively, you take advantage of it. Don't ever feel like they're replacing you. You can never replace something that you could do on your own. You're unique. You're an individual, just how AI would be individual.
That's amazing. That's awesome how you've been able to merge both traditional art and new art. And like to me, my podcast is my art.
Yes,
So
love
I
it.
hope someday I can go and record my podcast at your studio. I would love to be able to
Of
share all your
course,
art pieces and show the galleries. And speaking of the gallery, is it open to the
it
public?
is.
How,
We're open Thursday through Sunday, 12 to 6 p.m. Um, uh, our galleries, we switch out artists each month. Every first Friday is the opening of a new show, a new exhibit. And so we're celebrating Black History Month this month. And so I really want my gallery to be black and brown prone gallery. Of course, anybody is welcome. Other people have exhibit, other people have sold in the gallery as well. But I really want to focus on the folks that usually wouldn't really get an opportunity to exhibit in other galleries, especially if people are just starting out, or even people in their 60s, 70s, that this is the first opportunity to exhibit their work and they've been painting their whole life. So it really doesn't matter what walk of life you are in. I would like to give an opportunity to anybody. The gallery is pretty big. And so, yeah, I mean, it's working out so far. The boutique right now is doing really well. We have a couple of vendors that do cheap
Mhm.
apparel. So right now, like everybody's going crazy over the shirts and the sweatshirts and stuff that we have. It's all about local, supporting local. I don't take any commission from any of the paintings, from any of the sales. What I do is that I do a monthly fee for vendors to sell their work there, and then the money goes straight to them. People check out with QR code, and then for paintings, the gallery takes 20% of anything sold. So what I just tell artists is like, hey, if your artwork is $200, add 20% to that, and that way you don't nobody loses out on what they're supposed to make through their art.
And earlier you mentioned that you're hoping to have more support from businesses. How can a business that's looking to support your art or other art local artists, how can they contact you or how can they collaborate?
So the gallery's name is Monarca Art Space, and MAS, MAS for short. So our logo is MAS KC. You can look us up online through Monarca Art Space or MAS KC. On social medias, we're MAS KC. We are looking for sponsors. We are so proud that we've had help in the past through bank U.S. Bank. We've had Country Club Bank. We've had insurance companies that have been sponsors in the past for our like First Fridays. And what we do is that we invite those companies out. And when we have First Fridays, like a big crowd event, that they're there with information and different things like that. But we've always placed their logos on our walls next to our artwork as well. I've also worked with banks that we've extended our exhibit, especially last year from Day of the Dead. We extended our exhibit all onto their bank lobby as well. So it's an extension to our exhibit to get people out there as well. So there's many ways that we can partner, but I think my main focus right now is to get artist scholarship to work in the studio so that they can get creative.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, hopefully you'll send me some pictures and we can share them when the podcast comes out.
I'd love to.
Thank you so much, Vania. I really appreciate you coming out. Is there anything else you want to share before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I mean, even though, yes, I do have my business, I do have the gallery that's up and going, it's doing wonderful and everything. I'm still working. I still do murals. I still take commission paintings and stuff like that. That helps the gallery as well. It helps the gallery as well grow. And until we get a solid sponsorship opportunity that will cover us, I'm the main funder. And so, yeah, I'm available for murals, commission work. I also work with artists too, figuring out their style. I do portfolio reviews,
like coaching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of like coaching. And so there's so many opportunities. If somebody's interested and they're an artist, definitely reach out to me, and that's what I do.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Vania. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I know we can talk here for hours, and hopefully we'll have part 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I can get a chance to come out and visit your new gallery. I wish you best of luck in that. I haven't had the opportunity to visit it in person, but I have it on my list.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Well, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who tuned in today. I hope you enjoyed listening to Vania's story, and I hope it inspired you if you are thinking of getting into the arts or maybe into some other type of business. Maybe her story will help encourage you to take that leap of faith. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you guys next time here on your favorite podcast with Vania Chavez.